Timeline of Resident Evil 15th to 19th centuries. 15th to 17th centuries. During the period known as the Great Navigations, the prosperous European merchant Thomas Travis founded the shipping company Travis Trading. 18th century. In a rural area of Europe, the Salazar dynasty begins. The first castellan prevents the Los Illuminados sect from accessing the Las Plagas parasite by burying the microorganism in the depths of his castle. RE4, Memorando de Luis 2, Memorando do Castelao, Incubate. Estimated period. Considering that a generation corresponds to 30 years and that Ramón Salazar is the 8th castellan in 2004, the dynasty would have started about 240 years before Ramón took over as castellan. Veronica starts the Ashford dynasty. Estimated period. As Alfred and Alexia represent the 7th generation, Veronica would have been born approximately at the end of the 18th century. 19th century. Travis Trading begins the 19th century as a profitable trading company. Inspired by the exploits of explorers like David Livingstone, Henry Travis, the youngest of 7 brothers, invests much of his fortune in exploring Africa. Henry makes 5 expeditions to the African continent in order to explore all its regions. With Travis discoveries, Travis Trading enters the mineral exploration business, with the excavation of mines and the discovery of oil wells. Armed with rich information on the fauna and flora of the continent, as well as on the traditions, culture and folklore of African peoples, Henry Travis returns to his native country, 34 years after having left it, and publishes an impressive work of 72 volumes entitled Study of Natural History. In order to ensure exclusive exploitation of the information contained in the books by Travis Trading, Henry's older brother, then head of the company, spreads rumors that his younger brother's books were nothing more than fiction. The work is then totally discredited by the scientific community. Henry Travis enters a state of deep depression and dies 2 years after his return from Africa, due to the discredit given to his work. At the end of the 19th century, Travis Trading began exploring the mineral resources of the African continent. Such activities form the basis of Trisol's future Natural Resource Exploration Division. The family of Patrick, future butler of Oswell E. Spencer, begins to serve the ancestors of the Spencer family. Estimated period. My family has been at the service of the Spencer family since the time of his great-grandfather, considering that 1 generation corresponds to 30 years and that, in this case, we have 4 generations, the approximate date is 120 years before the year 2000. 1892. February 18th. The Patterson mine has a minor collapse, leaving some workers buried and others dead. Survivors report that the floor of the site is very unstable. February 19th. The company responsible for the mine warns that it will not send any replacements and that employees will have to work twice as hard. SECXX. Mid-20th century. Travis Trading starts extracting samples of plants, animals and insects from the African continent. Such specimens are used in pharmaceutical research, generating great commercial success and the subsequent creation of Trisol's pharmaceutical division. Much of the information contained in Henry Travis books contributed to the enrichment and growth of this branch of the company. Years 1910. Edward Ashford's probable period of birth. Estimated period. Edward is the 5th head of the Ashford family. Considering that a generation corresponds 30 years ago, he was born approximately 60 years before Alfred and Alexia, who belonged to the 7th generation. 1918. James Marcus is born. 1931. Oswell E. Spencer is born. 1939. James Marcus graduates from a prestigious university. 1949. Ron Davis is born. Early 1950s. Patrick's father works as the head butler for Oswell E. Spencer and Patrick begins to learn his trade. During this time, Edward Ashford and James Marcus frequently visited the Spencer estate. 1953. Kenneth J. Sullivan is born. Mikhail Victor is born in St. Petersburg, Russia. 1954. Lisa Trevor is born. 1956. Dan Deschamps is born. 1957. Enrico Marini is born. 1959. Robert Kendo is born. 1960. Born in France, Karina Lesperou, also known as Lupo. Albert Wesquier is born. Barry Burton is born. 1960s. Undated facts. The 3 divisions of Travis Trading, Natural Resources Division, Pharmaceuticals Division and Export Division, are firmly established and form a conglomerate under the Trisol name. The first factories begin to form the industrial region of the Kijuju Autonomous Zone. 1960. Alex Weskier is born. Undated facts. Born into a family with DNA considered superior, beauty, intelligence, physical and mental resistance, Alex Weskier is chosen to participate in Project W, in which Oswell Spencer intended to create a new race of superhumans. Along with Alex, 12 other children were selected for the project, but from a very early age Spencer saw Alex as his favorite, the child he wanted by his side for his future projects, so he raised and indoctrinated her from a very early age. 1961. Frederick Downing is born. 1962. Jack Baker is born. Undated facts. Oswell E. Spencer commissions renowned New York architect George Trevor to design a mansion in the Raccoon City Forest, a large area on the northern outskirts of the city, including the Arklay Mountains. William Birkin is born. 1963. Electrical engineer Michael Warren begins the electrification of Raccoon City. Nikolai Genevieve is born in Moscow, Russia. Brad Vickers is born in Delucia. 1964. Erez Moniz, also known as Harley, is born. Born in Germany, Michaela Heinzwaffen, also known as Bertha. Born in Russia, Vladimir Bodrovsky, also known as Spectre. Marguerite Baker is born. 1966. Rodrigo Juan Javel is born, in a village on Rockfort Island, Resident Evil Archives, profile of Rodrigo Juan Javel. September. Not dated. In West Africa, work began that would culminate in the discovery of the progenitor virus. James Marcus, Oswell E. Spencer and Brandon Bailey begin studying the Sonnentrep plant, grown in an underground garden. December. December 4th. Oswell E. Spencer, James Marcus and Edward Ashford officially discover the progenitor virus in the flower of the Sonnentrep plant. This virus is able to recombine the DNA of living organisms. 1967. Derek Clifford Simmons is born. February. February 12th. Samples of the Sonnentrep flower are taken to the United States for mass production of progenitor viruses. Despite being strong and growing quickly, the flowers do not produce the virus. March. March 23rd. Researcher Brandon is looking for new alternatives for growing the progenitor flower outside the African continent. Changes in soil, water, temperature, and light exposure have no effect and the experiment fails. Oswell E. Spencer, in conversation with James Marcus and Brandon Bailey, expresses interest in starting a company. Marcus doesn't care, as long as he can continue progenitor research. November. Not dated. Construction of the mansion and laboratory facilities in the Arklay Mountains is completed. November 10th. At Spencer's invitation, Jessica and Lisa Trevor arrive at his mansion and are soon infected with the Type A and Type B progenitor virus, respectively. The virus fails to establish itself in Jessica, but shows potential in Lisa, who is placed under observation. November 13th. George Trevor leaves New York and arrives at Spencer's mansion in Arklay. Spencer tricks Trevor into saying that his wife and daughter have left the mansion to visit her Aunt Emma, who is sick. Jessica's body begins to weaken due to the progenitor virus injections. She plans to run away during one of the experiments, along with Lisa. November 14th. While showing George the mansion, Spencer mentions his interest in starting an international pharmaceutical company called Umbrella. Jessica Trevor does not resist the experiments and is discarded. Lisa begins to feel sick after receiving the progenitor injection and misses her mother. November 15th. After administering the progenitor virus, Lisa begins to experience symptoms of insanity. November 17th. Lisa Trevor finds her mother's coffin. November 18th. As his family fails to return from visiting Aunt Emma, Trevor grows suspicious of Spencer's actions. On one of his tours of the mansion, Trevor sees a staircase that leads to an underground passage, camouflaged by a small waterfall, not present in the original project made by him. He is scolded for having seen the past by some men dressed in white, the true story behind biohazard letters from Trevor. November 21st. George Trevor prepares to leave the mansion. While waiting for Spencer, one of the men in white who had berated him informs him that his family is dead. Trevor receives a blow to the back of the head, loses consciousness, and is imprisoned. November 24th. Incarcerated, Trevor decides to escape Spencer's property when he realizes that he can be murdered for knowing the mansion's secrets. November 26th. During his escape, George Trevor loses his lighter, a gift from Jessica. November 27th. George Trevor manages to escape his prison. However, with all the traps scattered around the mansion, the architect fears for his safety. November 28. While trying to escape the mansion, Trevor finds a room taken over by a huge plant. November 29. As he continues his escape, Trevor discovers new rooms in the mansion, such as the laboratories and caves. After several attempts, he realizes that he will not be able to escape. The architect finds a high-heeled shoe in one of the hallways and remembers his wife. He longs for his family to be alive. 30th of November. George Trevor begins to feel hungry and thirsty. November 31st. Already weakened due to countless days without water or food, Trevor continues his escape, without success. In a dark and damp tunnel, he finds a tombstone, where his name is engraved. Only then does he realize that Spencer always had it all figured out. The month of November has only 30 days. As stated in the book Resident Evil Archives, Trevor is assumed to have died in December. December. Undated. George Trevor is also used as a guinea pig for the progenitor virus research and dies in Spencer's mansion. 1968. Undated facts. The Umbrella Corporation is founded by Oswell E. Spencer, Edward Ashford and James Marcus. The pharmaceutical company is used as a front to conduct research on biological weapons. Everything would serve to raise funds for the execution of a plan for the artificial selection of humanity through the progenitor virus, Project W. Construction of Raccoon City's public trams begins in Europe and, through electrical engineer Michael Warren, they are quickly put into operation in the city. April 15th. Unsuccessful in producing the progenitor virus in the United States, head of research Brandon Bailey and Dr. James Marcus returned to Africa. In order to avoid attacks by the Ndapaya tribe, Brandon Bailey and James Marcus heed Spencer's suggestion to eliminate the natives. July. Not dated. Edward Ashford dies after contracting the progenitor virus by accident and Alexander Ashford succeeds him as the family's patriarch. August. Not dated. Construction begins on an Umbrella research facility in Africa. August 19th. The Umbrella training facility is completed in the Arkley Mountains and James Marcus accepts Spencer's proposal, being appointed director of the complex. The center's goal is to develop a new generation of model employees to serve the future of Umbrella Corporation. The Ndapaya are expelled from part of their land by Umbrella, losing the place called Garden of the Sun, where they cultivated the Sonentrep plant. A company research center will be built on the site. Brandon Bailey heads to Africa, where he will send samples of the progenitor virus to James Marcus, who remains in Raccoon City as director of the training facility. September 29th. Due to the precariousness of Umbrella's facilities in Africa and the continuous attacks by members of the Ndapaya tribe, Brandon Bailey considers it better for Marcus to have remained in the U.S., as it would be complicated to carry out the research there. November 30th of November. Oswell E. Spencer comments to James Marcus that the progenitor is a waste of money, but Marcus continues to believe in the potential of the virus. 1969. Born in Puerto Rico, Hector Rivers, also known as Beltway. Not dated. Forrest Spire is born. February. Undated. In secret, Alexander Ashford begins designing an umbrella base in Antarctica and plans to use it as a development center for the Code Veronica project. June. 15th of June. Umbrella's Africa research facility is completed. The existence of the site is kept secret, as is research with the progenitor virus, and only a few employees are aware of both. November. Not dated. Construction of Umbrella's base in Antarctica is completed. December. The supervisor of the construction of the research complex in Africa encounters problems in watering the progenitor flowers. 1970. Curtis Miller is born. Morpheus D. Duval is born. Crispin Jettingham, also known as D.I., is born. Christine Yamada, also known as Four Eyes, is born. Early 1970s estimated. Born in Japan, Vector. 1971. Undated facts. Alfred and Alexia Ashford are born as a result of the Code Veronica project, which consisted of discovering the genes that control human intelligence. Using Veronica's mummified body, Alexander Ashford extracted genetic material and implanted it into an egg generated by a surrogate mother. The experiment spawned Alexia, a brilliant scientist, and Alfred, with just above average intelligence. Joseph Frost is born. Lawrence Kimbala, also known as Shona, is born. Caroline Floyd, also known as Willow, is born. 1972. Billy Cohen is born. Edward Dewey is born. 1973. Chris Redfield is born. Reynard Fisher is born. Josh Stone is born. 1974. Ada Wong is born. 1975. Jill Valentine is born. Richard Aiken is born. Bruce McGivern is born. Rachel Foulay is born. Born in England, Marissa Ronson, also known as Tweed. 1976. Angela Miller is born. Louise Sarah is born. Sienna Fowler, also known as Party Girl, is born. The Ebola virus is discovered. After witnessing its potential for devastation, the Biological Weapons Convention took steps to prevent its use as a weapon. 1977. Carlos Oliveira is born. Leon Scott Kennedy is born. Greg Glenn is born. Born in China, Fangling. Albert Weskier and William Birkin join Umbrella's training facility as potential heads of research. September 2nd. Observing the Umbrella training facility interns, Dr. James Marcus mocks them. However, he makes a reservation about two in particular, William Birkin and Albert Weskier, stating that both would have a future in the corporation. September 19th. Taking the progenitor as a base, mixing it with leech DNA, James Marcus develops a new type of virus. The scientist names the first successful derivative of the T progenitor line, from tyrant. Initially, Marcus keeps this data secret. September 25th. James Marcus's assistant notes that William Birkin and Albert Weskier are complete opposites and competitors. October 7th. For the first time since the training facility was built, Marcus shows some interest in something other than his research. His assistant receives an immediate order to encourage the rivalry between William and Albert. October 23. Claiming that he would not get satisfactory results with rodents alone, James Marcus longs for experimentation on human beings. November 15th. Obsessed with his research, Marcus figures someone is suspicious of his experiments. Still with the fixed idea of using human beings in his research, the scientist decides that those who get too close will end up becoming his guinea pigs. December 15th. While still in Africa, Brandon Bailey sends 5 progenitor virus samples to James Marcus, RE5, copy of receipt. 1978. Not dated. The Queen Zenobia ship is built. The interior design was based on blueprints left by architect George Trevor before his disappearance. January 13th. 5 months after its discovery, the T-virus is finally perfected by James Marcus. Using leeches in the tests, the scientist realizes that his guinea pigs are ready and that, with the T-virus in hand, he will be able to oppose Spencer and dominate the company. James Marcus sends a telegram to Brandon Bailey that the T-virus is a success. January 31st. The devices Marcus uses to protect his research are destroyed. Assuming the intruders are looking for the T and the leeches, the director is suspicious of Spencer. February 3rd. James Marcus administers the T-virus to leeches, inducing predation, parasitism and their multiplication. With these results, the researcher considers that leeches may be good candidates for research into biological weapons. February 10th. James Marcus's leeches grow and multiply rapidly. Violent changes drive specimens to cannibalism. February 11th. Marcus finds evidence of changes around the entrance area of his lab. Afraid of having his research stolen, the scientist considers ordering William Birkin and Albert Weskier, the only ones he trusts, to solve the problem. Marcus wants to announce the T-virus at his next board meeting. March 7th. Marcus's leeches now have collective behavior and there is a reduction in cannibalism among them. April 22nd. Leeches completely lose their individualistic behavior and begin to feed and move around in groups. April 30th. An employee stumbles upon James Marcus experiments. The scientist wonders if humans could be a food source for leeches and how the leeches would respond. Undated, probably April 30th. Dennis, a student of James Marcus, comes into contact with one of the leeches and falls ill. One of the interns begins to suspect that Marcus' research is dangerous. Estimated according to the event of April 30th. May 10th. The director of the water treatment center complains that the facility is unable to process all the waste received from Umbrella's research complexes and industries. June. June 3rd. The leeches begin to imitate James Marcus. July. July 24th. The director of the water treatment center hears rumors that the training center will close. July 29th. The training facility is closed on Spencer's orders and Albert Weskier and William Birkin are transferred to the Arkley Research Facility. July 31st. Weskier and Birkin visit the Arkley Research Facility for the first time and are appointed lead investigators for the T-virus project, which aimed to produce a human biological weapon. Meanwhile, James Marcus remains at the training facility with his own experiments. Birkin is interested in combining Ebola genes with the T-virus in order to make it stronger. Weskier and Birkin meet Lisa Trevor, 11 years after being imprisoned by Spencer. 1979. Claire Redfield is born. Richard Irving is born. 1980. Rebecca Chambers is born. Ingrid Hunnigan is born. In Umbrella's laboratory in Africa, researchers are able to grow Sonnentrep containing the progenitor virus in an artificial way.
If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.